You have the Calgary Stampede coming up, don't you, William?
Yeah, it starts in, I would say, 2 weeks, and we're excited. And if there's enough water to last it, we'll be even more excited.
I've still never, I keep wanting to go. I've never actually been. For all the time I spent in Alberta, it's never coincided with the Stampede.
It's a
How
hard
are you
time.
double my age and you've never been? That's crazy.
Double your, how old are you, you jackass?
Okay, I underestimated my own age. I'm 21, but
Okay.
kind of close.
That was
Get
like
in there.
when Sean and I were coming back from Davos, and the Air Canada woman thought he was my son, and he's like 12 years younger than me, which was like just mortifying.
I mean, if you did adopt Sean, that'd be a pretty interesting family you got there.
At the age of 12, I thought I needed a redhead videographer for my entire life as my son. Anyway, all right, let's get this started. Hello and welcome to you all. This is Off the Record on True North. It's Friday, June 21st. We like to kick back, look at the lighter side of things and analyze. Not analyze. No, analyze is too serious a word. We like to just, kick around, vamp on the week that was, things that are coming up. And we do this with a regular cast of characters at True North. It's, irregular at times. Today is one of those days. We've got William McBeath, who is the COO and occasionally a voice on the Daily Brief, and Noah Jarvis, who you've seen on here before. I think he was on last week as well, and you hear him all over the place as well. William, Noah, good to have you both with us. Thank you.
Happy to be here.
It's always a pleasure.
I'm Andrew Lawton, by the way. You guys sounded so depressed with that. It's like I was like, I'm trying to lift up the energy. You're like, yeah, it's great to be
I was
here.
following William's lead, but
like Ross from Friends. Hi. That's an old reference now, I realize. You guys have William, are you like just parched right now?
Yeah, people are down on 8th Avenue with little buckets begging for a quart of water. People on coming to work. It's it's not too bad yet. We have had to reduce our water usage. It's funny. The city of Calgary spends billions of dollars every single year. Very little of it apparently on keeping water going into our taps. They prefer to spend it on things like the climate crisis and bike lanes that nobody uses in the city. But I think this is a reawakening that cities have important jobs. One of them is to get water into your taps. And when that doesn't happen, people notice. Wow. And they're not really that happy.
A chicken in every pot, a car in every garage, and a droplet of water in every faucet. Apparently not for the last one. So are you actually like doing the good citizen thing and like, showering every, 9 days or whatever it is they're asking you to do? Or are you just like business as usual?
Well, I left the city for about 5 days, so I'm hoping that means I get to use up all of the water I didn't use.
You've accrued water credits.
Yeah, isn't that how that works? I don't use water then, and I use it now, and somehow that helps with our carbon emissions, I think, if I read that correctly.
The new social credit score. You've got all your H2O credits. And you're Noah in Toronto, so you probably just don't want to use the city water anyway.
No, probably not. But I like to think that the Calgarians were self-righteous about having the being the best part of Canada. And now they're looking to Toronto to spare any water. You want to donate some water to us? But
it's reverse equalization. You got to get some water shipments from Atlantic Canada, William.
I mean, there is an awful lot of water out there, although Toronto only seems to be sending us their crime, and we're perfectly okay if Toronto didn't keep doing that.
I'm just imagining like a line of people from, Halifax to Calgary just holding like a pail that they just keep dumping into the next one there. This is how we're getting by. All right, we are like 4 minutes in and it's already a train wreck. Welcome to Off the Record, everyone. Let's talk about the one thing we can all unite on, Calgarian or Ontarian or Manitoban or from anywhere else, which is that the Liberals are not exactly popular right now. The latest poll that came out was from Abacus. It showed the Conservatives with a 20-point lead, literally 40%, 40 some odd percent, exactly 20 points ahead of the Liberals. That is just blowout territory. Not quite, Kim Campbell 93 blowout territory, but could conceivably bring the Liberals down to being the third party. Absolutely embarrassing. And no one in that party is openly saying that Justin Trudeau is the problem. And there was a piece in Radio Canada, the French arm of CBC, which interviewed a few anonymous MPs that were all saying basically they need to change in leader, but they don't actually have an ability to get rid of him. Now we have the Liberals getting a little bit desperate on all sorts of things. Talk about the mug, Noah.
Yeah, well, a couple of days ago, Liberal MP Mark Garrison, perpetually not a caucus member of the cabinet, so just want to put that out there. But Mark Garrison, he printed a mug from, I guess, his local Walmart photo center, and he has it plastered on it with a big face of Jennifer O'Connell, and the quote, "Boo hoo, get over it." Now, if you might recall, Jennifer O'Connell in a committee meeting, she basically said "Boo hoo, get over it" to Conservative MP who was trying to demand the government release the names, or at least be a bit more transparent of what is in the NSICOP foreign interference report, which basically stated that there are certain parliamentarians who have been collaborating with foreign governments against the interests of Canada. And so, just to brag about protecting people who are potentially betraying our country is quite something. But I don't know. It seems like the Liberals, they sink to new depths every week that goes by.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Garrison is, I don't really hold him up as being a skilled political operator by any stretch, but I'm trying to think of what this would be like. Like, this would be like Justin Trudeau drinking out of an SNC Lavalin mug after he fired Jody Wilson-Raybould. It would be like, Harper drinking out of a Mike Duffy mug at the middle of the expenses scandal, basically. Like, it just says, I do not care about this thing that Canadians clearly do care about. Canadians are clearly frustrated about. And just to go back to the poll numbers for a second, I wanted to ask you about this, William, because this House just rose for the summer. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, whenever it was, which means that they've now got, basically 3 months of runway to go out and campaign, spend time in their ridings. Like, what do you think Justin Trudeau, is there something he could do to turn this around? And if there is, what would that look like over this summer?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. MPs usually spend an awful lot of their calendar year actually in Ottawa. The House sits a lot longer than many of our provincial legislative assemblies do. But, now you've got sort of a 2-month break, and you're going to have Liberal MPs back in their ridings. And I think they're going to get a bit of an earful from voters over the course of the summer as they go to every church fair, small town festival, Lions Club, or Senior Center to visit. They're going to be hearing, I think, a lot of unpopularity. And that is going to put pressure on the Prime Minister. I think he is going to come back at the end of summer, and there's going to be a sense that things are not going well. And, I think they really tried to change the channel with their budget, and that didn't work. They thought the capital gains tax cut was going to be a slam dunk. And then it
hashtag generational fairness.
And, if you listen to Minister Freeland and others talking about that with increasingly dire messaging around it, and, it does point to the fact that this government simply has run out of steam. They don't seem to have any new ideas. And it's a real big problem, because I remember back in 2015, when the Conservatives went onto the campaign trail, they went out to talk to Canadians. I didn't think that we had as much of a vision to sell people as we had in previous elections. Vote for us because X. It was because if you vote for the Liberals, they could blow up the economy. By the way, turned out to be completely true. Yeah. But what is Justin Trudeau going to say? Vote for us, or Pierre Poilievre will take away your abortion, or will put you all into concentration camps because he's a white supremacist. I don't think that's a compelling message. So, is there anything the Prime Minister can do to turn it around? Well, there's one thing. He could go, I guess. That would be one thing.
Yeah, I think it was a line from, was it you'd know if it was from Frasier, where it's like, so-and-so lights up a room by leaving it. That was I can't even remember who it was about, but there is something about that. Like, right now, you've got a lot of Liberals that are just waiting. And again, I mean, who the heck wants to take over that? Like, you'd end up with someone who doesn't have ambitions of being the leader long term, that would just be an interim prime minister and get the Liberals through the election. And then afterwards, they can have their, grand reconstruction with, Mark Carney or something like that. But I'll ask you, as you alluded to before we started recording here, you are half my age. You are not actually, but the question I'd ask about younger people, because it was younger folks that in a lot of ways got Trudeau elected in 2015. And those folks we've seen have just turned on him entirely. Like, they're the ones who, if you were 18, 19 in 2015, you're now nearing 30. You're finding that you can't afford a house. You maybe can't find a job that you like. You're maybe living with your parents. Like, all of these things that are naturally pushing people in Pierre Poilievre's direction. But when you talk to people your age, what's the sense of Justin Trudeau?
I think the sense of Trudeau is like he's a phony and that he's robbed sort of my generation of their future. People who are apolitical, they tell me that they have no sort of opportunity or shot to buy a home in the next 10 years, and they're 20 and they want to start buy a home, start a family like everyone else in human history. Yet this is not really possible, not just for young Canadians, but even people who are like in their 40s. There's people who are still renting far longer than they thought they would be when they voted for Trudeau originally, and a lot of them, they probably thought, we'll be able to get some pot and hotbox my new home when I'm in my 30s, and then you can't buy a home, so now you're smoking pot in a homeless shelter. So it's not really great for Canadians who are going
quite the
through
vivid
these
picture
times,
you're painting, Noah.
But it's not really great for the average Canadian who has to get up every day, go to a job, come home, cook food for their children, and all those things. Instead, it's really great for liberal insiders who are making money off SDTC, or who are just really wealthy and just profiting off of their assets getting a lot more expensive.
What's your read on the coalition, William? Because I think you've been involved in conservative politics since it was reform politics, so you've seen the various iterations of this party. It seems like the base of accessible voters looks a lot different now than it did for Harper, and certainly than it did for the alliance before him.
Yeah, no, I think something you really have to give credit to Pierre Poilievre, either because he read
Very Alberta pronunciation.
Yeah, I get
Poilievre.
I should say Poilievre. I apologize. You have to give him credit, though, because he either read where Canadians were going, or he helped to bring them there himself. But he really did change the fundamental voter coalition for the Conservative Party. A lot of people who either had never voted Conservative before are now open to voting Conservative, or people who had never voted at all before are now open to voting Conservative and voting for the first time. And that's a tremendous difference. And it really changes the political calculus. When Stephen Harper was trying to win his majority government back in 2011, the path to victory was on the edge of a knife, right? Mm-hmm. It required the New Democrats to outperform anywhere they've ever been, the Liberals to hit historic lows in popularity, and the absolute right set of conditions, because the Conservatives at best could scrape up to just about 40% under ideal conditions. And now you're seeing with these polls that Pierre is routinely getting above 40%. So that voter ceiling is higher, which makes the path to a Conservative government far easier than it's been in the past. And for the Liberals, the exact same problem, but an opposite. They have a much smaller voter universe. Them being able to hold on to power it was already difficult. They were already winning minority governments with the lowest percentage of the popular vote in our history. And now it's all but impossible for them unless something fundamental changes in the next year.
Yeah, like I recall during the 2021 election, it would have been, I had made I don't even know if it was a prediction per se, but I had remarked that I couldn't see another Conservative majority government in Canada. Like I just was not seeing that for the reasons you just mentioned. And people forget the 2011 election was weird for a number of reasons. That was the election in which you had all of these 12-year-old NDP MPs that were elected in Quebec. It was the year you had, this collapse of the Bloc, a collapse of the Liberals. You had this surge of the NDP. It was an election in which you had a majority that didn't really involve Quebec. The Conservatives didn't make a breakthrough in Quebec. It was all GTA, Lower Mainland, Vancouver. So there was a lot of weirdness to that. And that was where I think early on when Poilievre won, and I had interviewed him about it, I think, and I was asking about the path to victory. They weren't saying what it was, which I understand. They don't want to give up their strategy, but I actually think they're going to put some more areas in play. I think Quebec, I could see that going both ways, but you're right. It seems a lot more natural than it did even for Harper in 2011.
And there's definitely more parts of the country that are competitive. The Conservatives are absolutely dominating a large swath of British Columbia, including quite close to Vancouver, the proper city of Vancouver itself, which is not always something they've been competitive in. In fact, I think it's been back until the 2000 election that the Conservatives have been this popular in and around the region. They're competitive in large swaths of Quebec, including coming up to, if not actually in Montreal, pretty darn close to it, and a ton of Atlantic Canada, which used to be considered a safe Liberal bastion, is now trending very much towards the Conservatives. And I think it's because everything what we know, property values, the cost of housing, the cost of living, the fact that the carbon tax is deeply unpopular from one end of the country to the other, all of these are giving Pierre Poilievre and his Conservative Party a lot more opportunity electorally than any Conservative has had since, I would say, Stephen Harper in 2011, or possibly even since before that.
And there is coming up going to be one test of the political leaders to some extent. Noah, what's going on next week?
Well, next week there's going to be a by-election here in Toronto. Well, I'm actually in Mississauga, but in Toronto, St. Paul's, it's usually considered a safe Liberal riding. There's going to be a by-election, but it looks like it's going to be suspiciously competitive because I have 338 Canada up right now. It says that the Conservatives are within striking distance of the Liberal candidate. They are polling at about 35% to 40% for the Liberals. Now, riding by riding sort of polling isn't as, say, accurate as, say, national polling, but at the end of the day, the fact that the Conservatives are even competitive in this riding shows that there is a massive swing in Canada. I mean, Toronto used to be a Liberal stronghold that was impenetrable, especially the downtown core of Toronto. I mean, we're talking about the people who are living up in apartments, and they take the TTC instead of a car, and they are the most concerned about climate and stuff like that. This is the type of people that are swinging over to the Conservatives. So the fact that Trudeau really has pissed these people off it's incredible.
Yeah, and it's funny because Toronto polls used to always be the one where if you were the Conservative there, you were the sacrificial lamb, and you do it either because you're a complete idiot that doesn't know what a Conservative at St. Paul's is, or you're doing it because you want to get in the good book so that down the road you can get Mississauga Streetsville or something as a candidate, or get some good staffer job. Like it was always the joke. And there are other ridings like that. Like you don't want to be the Conservative running in Toronto Danforth, and you also don't want to be the NDP or Liberal running in Grand Prairie. I mean, politics has these safe seats. The fact, I still think the Conservatives are probably going to lose. But the fact that it's even a discussion, the fact that we can have this debate about St. Paul's as though this by-election is in play. Like, William, did you see this coming?
No. Frankly, I did not think the Conservative Party would be a viable force in this by-election. I thought we could muster a reasonable show of support, but nothing extraordinary. And it's remarkable to think about if you look at who we're talking about in terms of who lives in this riding, right? You've got a large number of working professionals, people who work in professional jobs in suits and ties and worked on their computers. You've got immigrant families, people who are first, second, or third generation immigrants. You've got large numbers of LGBTQ people who live and work there in this downtown urban riding. And all of these people are not in small quantity now considering voting Conservative. That is a disaster for the Liberal government because they rely on a lot of those groups to keep up their support. So if they're starting to see cracks, if they're starting to see bits of their core voter coalition peel off, that's absolutely terrible. That is when if you're in the Liberal campaign, you begin to look around and see what things you can steal and smuggle out of the campaign headquarters because you're not going to have a paycheck at the end of the month. So I can't imagine they're very happy about how that by-election is going.
Yeah, it's just completely and utterly embarrassing in the same way that would be if the Conservatives were to lose, Grand Prairie or Peace River, Wetaskiwin or something like that. Okay, let's talk about this one. The Liberals, I think perhaps why they might not be doing all that well in the polls, because they don't focus on the things that matter. Poilievre's out there talking about housing. He's talking about the carbon tax. The Liberals are saying, what we really need right now, gender-neutral bathrooms on Parliament Hill. So Center Block right now is going through a massive transformation. It's going to take billions of dollars and many, many years to finally be brought back up to what it was before. So the House of Commons and Senate are actually in other buildings right now. They've set up these temporary chambers for them to take place. But when they rebuild them, Parliament Hill is going to have all gender neutral bathrooms. Any surprises here?
No, not at all. I mean, this is part of sort of the Trudeau government's agenda, and it's kind of surprising because, the Liberals, they have like a fundamental problem resonating with Canadians when it comes to these cultural issues. For example, they've tried to throw the Conservatives under the bus on abortion, and if you noticed in recent weeks, they've stopped, talking about it because they probably realized that it's not actually working, it's not resonating, and a lot of Canadians are actually becoming conservatives because the Liberals are, just kind of revolting to a lot of people, in terms of like what they've done with the economy, what they've done even with COVID lockdowns, because people remember that pretty vividly. So, just to push this issue, it's not something that people care about. It's not affecting their pocketbook. It's not affecting, their life. It's not like a needed change to Canada's institutions or just to the bathrooms of, Parliament. It's just, a very, it's something that'll grab headlines. It'll, maybe rise a little support in the LGBTQ community, but I don't think it's going to boost their polling numbers very much at all. If not, it's just going to become a source of ridicule for the Liberals, like most things have become for them nowadays. And we get to laugh about it, but people are going to have to go to Parliament, and women are perhaps going to be put at risk because they have to go in the same washroom with a bunch of men. Even just the fact that it can make a lot of women uncomfortable being in the same washroom as men is a reason enough to not bring in these all-sex washrooms, but it's not like the Trudeau government cares about gender-based analysis, or they actually do claim to care about it, but not in this instance when it affects the trans community.
Yeah, it's the far cry from the government having no place in the bathrooms or the bedrooms of the nation, but in the bathrooms of the nation, absolutely, apparently. William, you worked on Parliament Hill back in the day. Was this, a pressing concern that, you had to decide which one to use and you weren't quite sure, and all of this with that gender segregation of the bathroom?
Yeah, I'm thinking back to my time on Parliament Hill, and at least in the building I was in, bathrooms were not our biggest priority. I think what we really wanted was working air conditioning for Ottawa's hot and humid, some would say swampy summer weather, because it never seemed to have working air conditioning. It's funny. Nobody cared about bathrooms on Parliament Hill. First of all, in most cases, you're already having to go through security checks in order to get into these spaces. You have to swipe your security card, go past actual security guards who man their desks. And so we're talking about people who work for MPs. And so this idea that there are hordes of strangers roving through Center Block who somehow pose risks, and therefore we need to make fundamental changes to our entire structure to help people feel safe is frankly just a made-up nonsense answer. And I think it's because it's one of the few groups who are still supporting the Liberal government, the ultra woke, the people who think it doesn't matter how much progress has been made, there's still so much more we have to do, and we have to do it in the most angry and confrontational way possible. One of the few legacy journalists who I think some of us still enjoy reading is Adam Zivo, and I thought he had a great piece where he said, the extreme and radical LGBTQ activists are actually undoing the progress being made on the LGBTQ rights movement, that we're taking steps backwards. People are becoming less welcoming, less tolerant, because they're tired of having this stuff shoved in their faces and told that if you don't subscribe 100% to what you're being told, that you're hateful and you're a bigot. If you dare question the need for multi-gender washrooms, to represent all 18 or 47 genders, or if you somehow question whether or not 4-year-olds should be allowed to go on puberty blockers, well, that means you're hateful and you're intolerant. And but the Liberals, that's one of their only constituents. They've got the ultra woke, and they're doing whatever they can to keep them in the Liberal voting coalition.
Well, and remember, they made this big thing 6 months ago of having tampons in the men's washroom of all federal buildings, including army bases, where soldiers were just like ripping out the dispensers because they thought it was all nonsense. And then you had that conservative MP, Michelle Ferrari, that like went into the men's washroom with her younger male staffer to like film the thing there. And I think she ended up deleting that. But yeah, these things are like, it's not going to win the votes in St. Paul's. I guess that's my takeaway, unless you disagree, Noah.
Well, I think, William
Maybe it wins them a couple of votes in St. Paul's, but
but I think, he's generally getting at something. The Liberals are trying to keep, their main constituency. It kind of reminds me of the Rishi Sunak strategy that's, going out now. If you guys don't know, the UK, they're having an election, and Rishi Sunak, the conservative leader, is going to lose in a blowout. And apparently he's trying to just appeal to, his right-wing sort of older gentleman base by trying to bring back the national service and, some other programs that is meant to appeal to them so that they don't get killed by the new Reform Party, by Nigel Farage. It seems like a kind of similar strategy. The Liberals are trying to, keep their woke coalition together and not have it sort of break apart, by voting for the NDP or the Greens or whatever. So I don't know. It seems like the Liberals are in survival mode right now.
Yeah, and it's not even like they're particularly doing a great job at that survival. We'll move from federal politics here to provincial politics. Tomorrow, the NDP will crown their new leader. It's not exactly a horse race here. All roads are leading to Naheed Nenshi, the former Calgary mayor, as taking over. William, as the token Albertan, I'll just let you lead into what's going on here.
It's going to be the Soviet Secretariat of Alberta is meeting in its conference, and they're going to choose a new chairman. And it looks like Naheed Nenshi is going to be the winner. So, a few interesting things. First of all, when he was mayor of Calgary, he liked to pride himself on saying he wasn't left or right. His color was purple because he said he was blue on some issues and red on some others. And we said, you're not a conservative by any definition. You're a crazy communist who wants to destroy our way of life. And so pretending you're a conservative is not believable. But then good news, he's announced he's becoming the leader of the New Democrat Party. Any facade of being a conservative gone out the window. So yeah, unless something extraordinary happens, like, I don't know, a comet hitting the planet, I think he's probably going to become the new leader. And then it'll be an interesting matchup in Alberta politics. You'll have Danielle Smith for the United Conservative Party, Naheed Nenshi for the Alberta New Democrats. They went to university together. They were both at the University of Calgary. I think they may have run against each other or for opposing slates for the student council. And certainly they've been a thorn in each other's side on multiple occasions. When I worked for Danielle Smith in the Wild Rose days, we used to have to think, well, how is his purpleness, as we called him, going to react to whatever we were deciding to do? Because if he made it a big issue, if he really went after you, it's a problem. But yeah, still being a New Democrat in Alberta, not an easy job. There is not a lot of love for that party. I think Rachel Notley did as well as could possibly be expected for a New Democrat leader electorally. She got one government before being booted out. But I guess we'll see. Not dull time, though. Alberta politics used to be very sleepy, and certainly that's not the case anymore.
And do I understand he's proposed a divorce from the federal NDP, basically?
Yeah, it's always been a contentious thing, being a New Democrat in Alberta. This is, of course, a party that up until I think Rachel Notley became leader had never won more than 4 seats out of 83. So that's not a great track record. And certainly outside of Edmonton and Calgary, outside of the 2 big cities, being a New Democrat's an extremely hard ticket in order to try and get elected. So yeah, so there is some conversation about divorcing from Jagmeet Singh. He's very anti-oil, the federal New Democrats. That's offside for a lot of Albertans. Rachel, I think, did a pretty good job moving the party towards the center, at least on some files. And I think they want to probably continue that without having the association with Mr. Singh, who is not widely liked in Alberta. But changing the name of a party, well, it's a double-edged sword. You only have to look at British Columbia to see how changing from BC Liberals to BC United has gone over. That party is literally in a nosedive to oblivion as we speak. So
It's an implosion.
Yeah, and it's weird in NDP because the Alberta NDP has always had that weird coalition of like the crazy, like, blue-haired wokies, and then also, your more centrist people that might identify as liberal, but really just don't, because that party doesn't really exist in Alberta anymore. And then you have some disgruntled PCers like that former minister, his name I can't remember anyway, the PC minister who's now an NDP supporter. But yeah, the reality is, like, I don't know if was Nenshi really popular to you, like, Noah, like, do you care who Nenshi is?
No, I only had to learn about who Nenshi is. Well, I know William used to complain about him a lot before he started running for the BC NDP
that tracks.
So that was my introduction to him. So I already didn't get a good impression. But I mean, Nenshi seems like the type of guy who is popular amongst a kind of like certain type of person. Maybe has like a bit of a Doug Ford type appeal, and sort of like he's able to appeal to the common man, a little folksy. William's probably like, the common man. This guy's anything but that, which is true. But at the end of the day,
so I mean, how common is that?
Yeah, exactly, right. So I don't really know if separating off from the federal NDP and then just keeping the name NDP will do anything in like the minds of the average voter. I think you would have to actually change the party name. But as William mentioned, I'm covering BC politics a lot. Changing your name is a very, very big step. It didn't really help the reform when they changed it to Canadian Alliance all that much. It's not helping the BC Liberals at all. So there is that risk. With that said, I don't know if like the current political landscape in Alberta is sustainable right now, because before it was PCs versus Wild Rose, and they've sort of merged together, and it's become a more of a right-left battle. So I don't know if maybe Alberta will go back to that sort of dynamic, or maybe the NDP will sort of have to mellow out in terms of their radicalism to really maintain their relevance in the post-Notley era.
Yeah, fair enough. I totally lost the story we were going to go to next here. Oh, yes. William, you get to also complain about bureaucrats here.
I would never complain about the hardworking public servants who keep our government moving with peak efficiency and deliver valuable services to Canadians in a timely and affordable manner. But fortunately, I don't have to, because we're about to hire a squad of Terminators to wander the halls of the Federal Civil Service to keep an eye on them. Yes, there are spy robots trundling through the halls of some of the Federal Public Service buildings. Although if you talk to the people who own them, the government, they're not really for spying. They're for apparently making sure
the air conditioning is running the way it's supposed to, or something.
Civil Service are being kept comfortable. It's it makes them sound like plants, that they require enough light and oxygen and humidity.
But let's just take it at face value for a second. Let me pull up the article here and read that line. So it said, the robot gathers information on air quality, light levels, noise, humidity, temperature, and even measures CO2, methane, and radon gas. So, I mean, arguably, I guess they're monitoring, particularly flatulent bureaucrats. But it's like classic government. They can't just have someone go over and check the thermostat and, say, oh, the light's bright, I'm going to turn it off. Like, they need to get this like expensive robot to do it.
Yeah, that glides up and down the halls and may or may not be counting how many people are in the office in order to determine if there's enough workspace, and possibly whether or not you're in your individual office at any given time. Look, first of all, I don't think we have done a good enough job monitoring federal public servants at all.
Yeah.
The fact that thousands of them, tens of thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them just walked off jobs to work at home, and none of us really noticed, says a message that maybe these people aren't the paragons of efficiency that the Federal Public Service paints itself into being. So I personally would welcome some more oversight and ensuring that the very expensive Federal Civil Service that we pay for is actually doing some work. But of course, the union is deeply opposed to all of this. They're deeply opposed to having any of them have to go back to their offices. They think they should be allowed to work from home forever. And then now they're very upset that people might be monitored as to whether or not they're actually in their office at any given time.
Well, the union's opposed to all work.
Yeah,
They don't
well,
want
my
any of
God,
that.
if they have to be back in the office, surely they don't have to be actually at their desk and working. Well, they should be, I don't know, synergizing with their colleagues at the water cooler or whatever it is they might be spending their time doing. But yeah, it is interesting that the solution proposed by the government just happens to be A, the most controversial, and B, the most sort of expensive and over the top one, as opposed to, I don't know, making supervisors accountable for the behavior of their subordinates and saying, why does your department of 14 people only produce the work of one half person every other week?
Fair enough. This one was a weird. Well, actually, we don't have time for this one. We'll do that one on my show next week. So here we can all complain about the quality of what's on TV. Now, I'm assuming that most of you tuning in have just chosen to like swear off the crappy TV and you're watching True North shows, and we thank you for it. But if you happen to like flip through the channels, as I have from time to time, you'll come across things and you're like, this is just so bad. Well, this clip was from a show called New Amsterdam, which is off the air now, thankfully. It ran from, I think, 2008 to 2000, or no, when did it run? I've already forgotten when it ran. I think it was 2018 to 2023. Yeah, so it just went off the air last year. But I saw this clip circulating, and I was like, this is like perfect off-the-record material, because this is exactly why none of the shows on TV are good right now. Let's just let the video do the talking here.
Make yourself comfortable. There's a couch over there.
Hey, is he okay?
Yeah, he's okay. I had Cephas answer some questions from a Harvard test known as unrest. It is designed to measure someone's level of social resistance.
Social resistance.
When people like us oppose the values and policies of the dominant culture.
That's right.
And what does that have to do
Your
with...
son, he feels threatened on a daily basis. Like everything he's earned can just be taken away. He's disenfranchised. But because his life is seemingly free from all this, because he can't name it, he's internalizing it.
Name what?
Racism. I think your son's tumor was caused by racism.
That's too much.
Now, I don't have a medical degree, so I may be missing something, but I am not aware of racism causing tumors. I did not think that Black Lives Matter was an anti-cancer campaign. Just to put that point on it. Noah, how do you feel on this? Do you feel seen? Do you feel represented?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it's just all that social resistance building up in my chest, and now I got like heart palpitations. Maybe I gotta go to my doctor. But it's kind of funny. It's like when you said social resistance, I'm like, I live in Canada. I'm a conservative. It's a pretty liberal country. I mean, am I growing a tumor? Like this has got to be something that's happening. I'm pretty sure like Ezra Levant is like in stage 4 or whatever. Like this guy, needs a checkup. But I think it's utterly absurd. It's great that we get to laugh at this stuff. It just really shows that this wokeness whole thing is nonsense. And I sent it to a couple of my friends who are also Black, and they're like, what is going on? Like, can you just like be normal? Can you like tell a good story instead of like just trying to overtly appeal to like one racial group in your show? It's ridiculous.
I used to like back the last medical show that I watched on TV was House, and House was about this cranky doctor played by Hugh Laurie that just was an absolute brilliant guy, and he would always find the most obscure conditions imaginable that people had, and he would save the patients generally. And I'm like, they never did the racism thing. They never did the like, Dr. House, we cannot figure out why this person is dying, and he just looks at them and says, racist tumor. They never did that.
Well, I have to say, if I'm wheeled into hospital and it's a cancer diagnosis, I would ask that they please use conventional cancer treatment on me. I don't want the doctor to say I need 10 cc's of DEI training stat to be. I'm like, no, radiation and drugs, please. I don't need everyone sitting in a talking circle learning how to be anti-colonial. That's not going to take the tumor out of
Yeah.
my brain. Thank
So
you.
your doctor diagnosing you with wet fragility doesn't engender confidence? That's kind of crazy, William. I don't know about that.
It's like,
Yeah,
what
it's
did
like,
you
well,
do?
we can send you to the radiologist, or we have this great working group on confronting unconscious bias.
Yeah, but don't worry. We have a whole selection of washrooms for you to choose from as the tumor makes your brain explode from the inside. So
This is to be honest, this is an American show, but I'm kind of getting like some Canadian healthcare vibes from it there. All right, that was New Amsterdam. So I used to love this show in its first season. It was called Designated Survivor, and it was this like political thriller starring Kiefer Sutherland. And the first season was like the first episode was that the White House or the Capitol gets blown up in the middle of the State of the Union, and the designated survivor, who's like some obscure cabinet secretary, is the guy that takes the presidency, and he has to navigate through this massive terrorist conspiracy. Fantastic show. Second season, yeah, a little bit less good, but I was still there. Got canceled. Netflix brought it back for season 3. And in season 3, half of the episodes of the season, I kid you not, were about the president's transgender sister-in-law. And in one of the episodes, the president's transgender sister-in-law, who was born a male, is giving the president's daughter advice on how to get through her first period. And I'm like, can we bring back the terrorists? That was like why I started watching this show. But this is what TV is doing now.
yeah, you're out.
Yeah.
I actually loved the first season of that show. It was a political thriller. It was supposed to have elements of
Yeah.
politics. The guy is trying to rebuild a government that's been blown up by terrorists, and while simultaneously trying to track down the terrorists who did it. And and by the end, it's this weird social studies lesson in wokeism that isn't remotely enjoyable to watch anymore.
It's like, oh, will the president denounce his sister-in-law to win in Texas? Is like, what the hell? Where did this come from?
Yeah, no, it was deeply
No.
disappointing what happened to that show, and unbefitting what I think Mr. Kiefer Sutherland deserves
Yeah.
in his career.
Whose father
Reminds me-
or whose grandfather rather just passed away? No, his father. No,
His
his grandfather. Yes, Shirley Douglas's father. No,
Yeah,
wait,
rest in peace.
I've forgotten this whole family now. I used to know this.
It's his father, so
It's his father. Yeah, Donald, because he was so old. Yeah, Donald is his father, and then his grandfather was Tommy Douglas. Because okay, got it.
Yeah, no, it's very sad. I mean, I didn't agree with Donald Sutherland's politics. He was a pretty hardcore raging lefty, but I enjoyed him in a lot of movies, and so it is sad when we lose someone who's an actor. And that's one of the things I like to say is I don't have to necessarily agree with everyone's politics to enjoy a movie they make, because there's the woke say, oh, you can't watch so and so, he's a Republican, or you can't listen to so and so's music, he's a Republican. I think, well, I enjoy their content. I actually don't care about their politics. I'm not choosing who to vote for because of this actor, but he was great playing the evil president on the Hunger Games, and that was an entertaining role. So
Yeah.
All right, final words.
Yeah, no,
Noah?
well, that's exactly how I feel about Kanye West. It's like, he might say some crazy things every now and then, but hey, you put on that Graduation album from 2007. Ooh, it's really good.
Great
And
music,
obviously you guys
like
don't
20
listen to
years
that.
ago. Yeah.
Okay, relax, William. Let's not,
I think Noah's.
offend
I
my
think you just
favorite
gave Noah a
author.
tumor, William.
Yeah, I think I just had a stroke there.
I'll go check our insurance policy, see if you're covered for some DEI treatment there, Noah.
All right, Noah Jarvis, thank you, sir. William McBeath, thank you. My name is Andrew Lawton, and remember, everything you've heard is off the record. I actually don't know if I know any Kanye West songs.
Oh man, Andrew, I already knew this was gonna happen. You gotta culture yourself, maybe I'll drop out to London one day and just lock you
Okay,
in a room.
name
Kanye
5
West.
ABBA songs, Noah.
Somebody that I used to know. Wait, no. No, that's the wrong person.
It
Never
came out
mind.
like 40 years after ABBA.
Okay. In my defense, I've only heard like one song at a club, and my friend was like, "Yeah, is that somebody you used to know guy?" I'm like, so I don't know, it's stuck in my head.
Andrew, you would maybe know All of the Lights. I think that's probably the most famous Kanye song from that got a lot of radio play.
Oh yeah,
or
'cause
stronger.
Rihanna was in that one.
Make it better, harder, better, faster, stronger.
Yeah, that
Good,
one. Okay.
good impression. Yeah,
That was great.
that one.
Yeah.
Like he was in the room.
All right. I'll listen to a Kanye album. You listen to an ABBA album, and then we'll share our cultures next week, Noah.
Deal. Shit, got
ABBA's
it.
not my culture. I'm not Swedish or.
I was gonna say, are you Swedish at a Eurovision?
I don't know. You could pass off.
All right. I can pass off as Swedish. I think I'm a little bit too brunette. All right.
Swedish pastor.